You won't believe what just happened in the world of women's basketball. When Stephen A. Smith speaks, people listen. But this time, he didn't just talk basketball. He dropped a truth bomb so big it shook the WNBA to its core. What he revealed about Brittney Griner had fans, players, and even league officials scrambling to figure out what was real and what had been hidden for years. Let me tell you, this is not just some gossip about attitude or locker room tension. This is about identity, cover-ups, and a potential scandal that could destroy everything the WNBA built. It all started when Stephen A. went on a podcast interview and decided to speak his mind, completely unfiltered. He didn't hold back when talking about Brittney Griner's recent on-court behavior. According to him, her actions were not just aggressive, they were downright violent, elbowing other players, shouting slurs, and getting involved in unnecessary confrontations. The most talked about incident? Her foul on Caitlin Clark, the rising rookie who would quickly become a fan favorite. That moment, caught on camera, raised eyebrows. But here's the shocking part. Stephen didn't stop there. He brought up something that many had forgotten: Griner's time in a Russian prison. Most people remembered that she was arrested for carrying cannabis and was later exchanged for Victor Bout, the infamous arms dealer nicknamed the Merchant of Death. That alone was controversial. Why would the U.S. trade such a dangerous man for a basketball player? It didn't add up. But Stephen A. hinted that there was more behind that decision, and what came next made the entire internet stop and listen. This is where it gets interesting. Stephen A. claimed that during her time in the Russian prison, Griner underwent several tests, including a medical evaluation. According to him, one of those tests included a DNA sample. And here's the craziest part. The DNA test allegedly revealed something the public never knew. He didn't say it directly, but the way he carefully worded his sentences, the hesitation in his voice, and the look on his face, it all pointed to one thing: that Brittney Griner may not be who she claimed to be. He said the documents showed unexplained genetic traits, ones that gave her a significant physical advantage over other female players. Now, fans started connecting the dots. Griner was always known for her powerful build, unmatched stamina, and strength that often left opponents injured, even during practice. Teammates had whispered about how intense she was, and opponents often walked away bruised, but everyone assumed it was just her natural athletic ability. Until now. Because if her DNA revealed something different, something not typically found in other female athletes, that could explain everything. What makes this story different is that it's not just about performance anymore. It's about truth, and whether the WNBA knew all along and decided to hide it. You see, people also began questioning why she was sent to a male prison in Russia. At the time, most ignored it, assuming it was just a mistake or part of the harsh Russian legal system. But now it looked more like a clue that was ignored. And if the Russians figured this out from one test, why didn't the WNBA? Or maybe, just maybe, they did know, and they covered it up. Because revealing it would mean lawsuits, backlash, and the end of their so-called woke progress. This was the moment when destiny took an unexpected turn. Stephen A. implied that if Brittney had stayed in Russia longer, the truth would have come out. That's why the U.S. rushed to bring her home, even if it meant letting go of an international criminal. Because keeping her in that prison risked exposing something they had worked so hard to keep buried. And once again, fans went into a frenzy. Questions poured in online. Why did Instagram never flag that viral poolside video where Griner appeared shirtless? Any other woman would have been reported instantly. Was it because the platform, or someone else, knew something the rest of us didn't? At first, many brushed off the speculation. But then came the moment that changed everything. Stephen A. confirmed on air that he had seen the actual medical documents, that he knew what was in them. And while he refused to read the entire report publicly, his silence after making that claim said more than words ever could. Fans were left stunned, and just like that, the WNBA found itself facing the one thing it was never prepared for: exposure. But here's the shocking part. Stephen A.'s revelation didn't just expose Brittney Griner. It ripped open a hidden chapter of the WNBA's history that no one dared to question before. Once the DNA rumors went viral, people didn't stay quiet. Former players, anonymous league insiders, and even some current teammates started speaking up in subtle ways. Not direct accusations, of course, but small, cryptic posts, likes on controversial tweets, and refusal to defend Griner publicly. The silence was loud, and to the fans watching closely, it all meant one thing: There was something real behind these rumors. Let me tell you what really got everyone buzzing. Stephen didn't just criticize Griner's behavior, he said she was ungrateful and had no idea how lucky she was. He reminded everyone that the United States traded a convicted arms dealer, someone who wanted to harm Americans, just to bring her home. And what did she do after coming back? According to Stephen, she disrespected the very country that saved her. Instead of showing appreciation, she lashed out at the league, at fans, even at teammates. He didn't say it in anger, he said it in disappointment. And that tone made people listen. What makes this story even more twisted is that while the internet was blowing up with theories and debates, Brittany started cracking under the pressure. During a heated game with Indiana Fever, she fouled out, stormed off the court, and shouted something from the bench. Cameras caught it. Some heard her yell, "White Fing Girl," in Caitlin Clark's direction. Others claimed it was just "whack Fing call." But here's the thing. Brittany later said she didn't even remember what she said. Seriously? A moment that controversial? And she couldn't recall it? That's when fans really started digging deeper. Because now it wasn't just about what Stephen A. claimed, it was about how Griner was reacting. And it wasn't just one incident. Social media exploded with old footage of Griner's behavior, aggressive body language, questionable hits, and interviews that didn't quite sit right. Then people started asking the real questions. Why did none of her teammates ever speak about her changing in the locker room? Why did she always avoid post-game press unless it was strictly controlled? Why did she never react like someone who was thankful to be given a second chance? This is where it gets interesting. One viral post broke it all open. It was a fake meme quote, made to look like Griner said WNBA fans were toxic and that she preferred when games were so empty you could get some work done. At first, people laughed it off. It came from a known satire page. But then something strange happened. That fake quote didn't feel so fake anymore. It actually sounded a lot like things Griner had said in real interviews before. Not word for word, but the tone, the bitterness, the attitude, it matched. Suddenly, that meme felt more like a leak than a joke. The league's response? Silence. Absolute silence. Not one official statement about the DNA story. Not one denial about the Russian prison records. Not even a vague response defending Brittany. And that silence? It spoke volumes. Because if the DNA rumor was completely false, wouldn't the league rush to defend its biggest star? Instead, they said nothing. And fans started whispering. Maybe they knew all along. The craziest part? People began calling this the WNBA's version of a ticking time bomb. Because if Stephen A. really had official documents, and if Brittany's real medical records ever made it to the public, the entire foundation of women's basketball could be shaken. Player eligibility, game fairness, league transparency, all of it would be questioned. Some even said Brittany was being used as a scapegoat, that the league knew the truth and was now letting her take the fall alone to protect everyone else. Meanwhile, Stephen A. didn't back down. In another clip, he said, "The fact that it even bothers her is disturbing." He didn't say what it was, but we all knew. The DNA test, the trade for the merchant of death, the rumors flying online. He didn't explain further, but it was clear. He knew more than he was saying. And if Stephen A. Smith, one of the most respected names in sports media, was willing to hint at this publicly, then you have to ask, what else does he know that we don't? The moment Stephen A. hinted that there was more to Brittney Griner's story than we were told, the narrative began to unravel fast, and not in her favor. The internet wasn't just talking anymore, it was investigating. People started pulling clips, cross-referencing timelines, even translating Russian documents trying to find the truth. What they found sent shockwaves across social media. Old videos resurfaced, interviews, locker room footage, and even fan-made compilations highlighting the extreme differences between Griner's playing style and that of her fellow athletes. At first, most of it had been dismissed as coincidence or just part of her unique strength. But now, viewed through this new lens, it all looked completely different. This is how the internet works. Once a door opens, there's no closing it. Comment sections turned into detective forums. One fan pointed out that during her early days in the league, Griner had refused to dress in the same locker room as other players. Another claimed they had seen her being escorted in and out of training facilities separately from the rest of the team. And then came the questions about her past. Why were there so few personal photos from her teenage years? Why had she never openly spoken about her early medical history? You won't believe how deep some people dug. Allegedly, even high school classmates began sharing vague posts, hinting that they weren't surprised by what was coming out. But here's the shocking part. While all this was going on, Brittney Griner didn't make any effort to shut it down. No legal team stepped forward. No press conference to clear the air. Just silence, confusion, and a growing storm. Meanwhile, other players in the league started behaving differently too. Some stopped interacting with Griner on social media. Others avoided eye contact during games. Nobody said it out loud, but it was becoming obvious that the locker room energy had shifted. Something wasn't right, and the fans could feel it. And then Stephen A. went a step further. He reminded the public that this wasn't just about Griner. It was about the WNBA and how far it was willing to go to protect its image. He mentioned the league's new push for inclusion, diversity, and acceptance. He didn't criticize those values, but he questioned whether they had been used as a smokescreen to cover something deeper. What makes this story different from all the other sports controversies is that it challenges the very rules that define fairness in professional sports. If one player, no matter how famous, is allowed to bend those rules because of politics or agendas, then what does that mean for the rest of the players who train their whole lives for a fair shot? The WNBA had positioned itself as the progressive voice in modern sports. It celebrated Brittney's return like a national victory. But now that celebration looked hollow. Because if the league had known about the DNA test, or the prison records, or even the doubts about her eligibility, and still chose to put her on a pedestal, then this wasn't just a player scandal, it was a league scandal. The craziest part? Fans started demanding refunds. Some called for an independent investigation. A few even launched petitions to have Griner's career achievements reviewed, or worse, erased. Others demanded the league release her full medical file. Of course, that's not legal, but it showed how furious people were. And deep down, most people weren't mad because of identity politics. They were mad because they felt lied to. This wasn't just about Brittney anymore. This was about trust. And then came the whisper. Was Brittney Griner being set up to take the blame for something bigger? Some theorized that the league always knew, but let her play anyway. Now that the truth was bubbling to the surface, they needed a fall person. And who better than the most polarizing figure in women's sports? She was already being booed at games, criticized online, and ridiculed by fans who once supported her. If she burned, the league might survive. But that theory only made things worse. Because if it was true, it meant Brittney wasn't just the villain of this story, she was also the victim. This is where it all came full circle, and where the line between truth and betrayal became almost impossible to separate. As Brittney Griner's reputation unraveled in real time, the silence from the WNBA became deafening. Fans, commentators, and even former players waited for the league to step in, to either defend their star or explain the shocking allegations. But nothing came. No press statement, no fact check, no denial, just a growing storm. And Brittney was stuck in the center of it, spiraling. Let me tell you, the moment she broke down during a post-game interview, it was clear the pressure had reached a boiling point. Reporters asked her about the viral video, whether she actually used a racial slur when leaving the court. Her answer? I don't remember, but her eyes said it all. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't defensive. She looked like someone who had finally realized the walls were closing in. Cameras caught her glancing off stage, as if waiting for someone to step in and save her. But no one did. Not her team, not her coach, not the league. She was alone. And that's when people really started to turn, not against Brittney, but against the WNBA. Because if the league had known all along, if they had access to her real medical history, and still allowed her to play, still pushed her into the spotlight, still cashed in on the publicity, then the real betrayal wasn't hers, it was theirs. Destiny took an unexpected turn, and suddenly, the league that had once used Brittney to champion inclusion and progress was now quietly pushing her under the bus to protect itself. The backlash intensified. Fans questioned why there was no transparency when the trade deal with Russia happened. Why weren't those medical records reviewed more closely? Why was there no discussion about the prison placement in a male facility? And most of all, why did the WNBA remain silent as one of their biggest stars was publicly dragged, humiliated, and left to crumble under rumors they could have cleared up instantly? And here's the part that left even the most loyal fans stunned. Stephen A. Smith wasn't done. In a follow-up appearance, he made it clear. This wasn't about hate or gender or politics. This was about the truth. He said, You can love somebody and still call them out. You can support equality and still demand honesty. His words hit harder than any headline. Because for many, this wasn't about Brittney Griner at all anymore. It was about integrity. What makes this story so different is that there's no clear villain. There's no clean answer. If the DNA documents are real, and let's be honest, most people believe they are, then the system failed at every level. Failed Brittany by not protecting her from becoming a political pawn. Failed her teammates by forcing them to compete in silence. Failed fans by hiding critical information. And failed women's sports by crossing a line it never should have touched. The league that once prided itself on being woke and forward-thinking now finds itself under fire for the very thing it claimed to stand against: manipulation and injustice. And the worst part? It's not over. More files could leak. More insiders could speak up. More players might walk away. Because this scandal isn't just a headline, it's a wound that may never fully heal. So now the question is, where does the WNBA go from here? Can it survive this storm, or will this be the moment everything changes forever? As for Brittney Griner, only time will tell whether she'll be remembered as the face of the league or the symbol of its downfall.